I've just seen an article that said that Cambridge Analytica did do work for the Leave campaign, for Leave.EU, and they didn't get paid for it. The invoice was written out, but it was paid to UKIP, who were supposed to pay it on to Cambridge Analytica, but they didn't. They decided to internalise that money. So basically, they kept it. So that's Nigel Farage's hand on the gravy boat once more. He's dipping his hand again. And it's about time we stop pretending that the Brexit campaign, the Brexit referendum, was anything other than David Cameron's vanity project. He didn't call it because he wanted to give us a choice. He didn't call it because it was the democratic thing to do and that the European Union was the big issue at the time. He didn't call it for those reasons. He called it for his own selfish interest. He had a party that was threatening to tear itself apart over the issue of Europe. And he called the referendum fully expecting a Remain result so he could say to people who kept criticising our membership of the EU, we had a referendum, that's it, we voted to Remain, leave it alone. And when it didn't go his way, he walked away, he quit, ejecting any responsibility that he had for running the country and made a run for it. And that's what it's all about. It's not about will of the people, democracy, because that's not what it's ever been about. Yes, there has been Euroscepticism across the political spectrum in this country, from left-wing to right-wing to centrists, throughout history. Even one of my heroes, Tony Benn, was Eurosceptic. He's the reason I actually voted to leave, and I fully regret it now. Fully regret it, because I was too blinded at the time to see that this was just a coup. It was a hard right coup by the Conservative Party to hold a vote and say, oh yeah, we want to, let the people make a choice on the EU, whether we should be in the EU or out of it. And they dressed it up nicely and they made it look like they were being nice and democratic and fair to the people. But it was all about them. David Cameron wanted to save his own skin. And when he realised he couldn't save his own skin because we've actually voted to leave, he fucked off and ran away and they let them roll out Theresa May, the bullet sponge. And now we've got Boris Johnson. Every single bit of mess that we're in today is down to David Cameron. And the whole Leave EU campaign from the start was corrupt. From the start was crooked. Where you had prominent members like Boris Johnson saying, we will strike the easiest deal in history if we leave the EU. It'll be easy to get a trade deal or an economic deal. We haven't got one yet. We had them saying it'd be great, it'd be the best thing to ever happen to the country. We had them saying the pound won't crash. We had them saying we can spend £350 million a week on the NHS. None of those things have come true. One of them was written on the side of a giant fucking bus, and it hasn't come true. And yes, there are people saying, oh, well, that wasn't a full manifesto pledge. It wasn't an actual promise by the Leave campaign, an official policy. It was just a suggestion. Yes, true, it wasn't formalised, but if you write it on the side of a bus, you are morally fucking obliged to deliver, to give it. So the Leave campaign was crooked from the start. Just look at the dirty money that Aaron Banks has been floating around between him and Nigel Farage since the referendum. It's crooked, it's corrupt. This is not this is not a process of giving people what they want. This is not a process of giving the people what they want. Because if you look at all the polls now, if you look at the actual stats, most people who voted to leave in the European Union actually now want to remain. The stats are now leaning the other way. We had 52-48 for leave in the actual result of the referendum. And now, I don't know the actual numbers, but now we're leaning more towards remain because we've seen now. We've had 3 years of exposure to these lies and the charlatans that promised us the easiest deal in history. That promised us it would be so easy to get a new deal. That promised us that we could give all this money to the NHS and there won't be any trouble. Well, we've had major industries for 3 years warning us that they're at a threat because of Brexit. That the car manufacturing industry is the most notable one. We just had loads of closures of plants and factories and cutbacks of jobs, and they're citing Brexit as the reason for their cutbacks. Brexit uncertainty. The economy is now uncertain. It's now unstable. The pound keeps plummeting. Excuse me. Yes, it rises again after a little while, but it keeps plummeting, and that is not a stable currency, and that will lead to industries shutting down, plants being closed, jobs being lost. We're now having warnings from organisations that deal with these kind of things that we have food shortages, that the M25 will be chock-a-block, and you can just sit there and you can say it's all Project Fear. Project Fear. Project Fear. Yes, there is a lot of fear-mongering, a lot of scaremongering, a lot of silly things that I personally consider are ridiculous that some of the people are coming out with. But a lot of it is coming from actual experts. And then there's that word again that Brexiteers seem to hate. Experts. I'm so sick of experts. Why are you sick of experts? If your sink blocks in your kitchen, do you just call the guy over the road who's not a plumber? He works in Sainsbury's. Do you just call him to come and fix your sink because you're sick of experts? Experts are experts for a reason. They know what they're talking about. It's fine to be Eurosceptic. I myself am Eurosceptic. I think it's all a gravy boat. They're all in it. Corrupt politicians in it for themselves. It's a big boys club. And I do believe that the UK would be better off out of it in the right circumstances. In the right situation. But as it stands, we're going to pull ourselves out on Halloween, which is very, very, very apt. We're going to pull ourselves out with no deal. We're going to revert to WTO trading standards, which, look it up, there is one country in the world that solely uses WTO trading regulations, and that country is not one we want to emulate. Believe me, Google that shit. One country on the planet does that. Every other country on the planet that uses WTO has an established trade deal with at least one other country. All of them. There's over 250 countries on the planet. All of them have trade deals. So don't come at me with that. WTO is the best way forward. We need a trade deal in place. Our economy is the 5th strongest economy on the planet. It needs deals. It needs bargaining and negotiation and actual things set up with other countries. Otherwise, we won't sustain ourselves. So the whole Leave campaign, the whole Brexit referendum, was not about giving the people what they want. Because ironically, all the people that have, throughout their entire lives, said politicians are greedy, they're corrupt, they're in it for themselves, they line their own pockets. And they're correct. They spent their lives saying that. And then suddenly they somehow seem to blindly believe that David Cameron called the Brexit referendum because he's benevolent, because he's a nice guy, because he wanted us to have a say. That's not why he called it. Think beyond your Euroscepticism. Think beyond your hatred of the EU. Excuse me. Beyond your hatred of the EU. Think about why this referendum was called in the first place. Look at the trail of money. There's a lot of dirty money involved in this. There's a lot of corruption in this. So the corrupt, greedy, self-centered politicians that you complain about, they've infiltrated. They're involved in the campaign to leave the EU. Think about it. That's all I'm asking. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to agree with everything I've just said on this video. Just think. Thanks for watching. I shall see you in the next video.